You know?
knew it wasn't, and we get to the interview. He never even apologized.
No.
And then I corrected him and said, you weren't here when I got here. He never lied, and I thought, we're done.
We're done. You're done. You don't need to worry about it. So just hang in there, girl. We're just hang on for us, sweetheart. So we keep being good and doing what we need to do, loving people, and we're spending our lives good. We are. Yeah. Yeah. There you go. Okay. Sounds good. Love you. Okay. All right, brothers and sisters, let's are y'all, I know that it's like an hour after lunch, you probably all need a nap, and if you feel like that, it's okay with me. I'm not offended. I taught seminary at 6 o'clock in the morning to teenagers, so I can do anything. So if you need a nap, it's okay with me. What? All the men are gone. Oh no. They went to the man cave? I don't know where that is. Are they in the parking lot looking at an engine? I don't know what that means. That's okay, ladies. Nope, I'm just teaching this one. So let me start with giving you a little history about this workshop so that you know. This book was written by a man named John Van Epp. He is in the was, I don't know if he still is, the Family Sciences Department at the University of Utah. And what he did was for about 20 years, he basically used his students as lab rats, and anytime anybody got engaged, he said, hey, would you fill out a questionnaire on your dating, and then I want to follow you and see how your marriage goes. And so he's trying to quantify what kind of dating ends up with really good marriages and which kind of dating didn't. So he did all of this work and all of this study, and finally somebody said, well, aren't you going to publish that? And so he finally read this book, How to Avoid Falling in Love with the Jerk. I can only scratch the surface of this, but I'm going to recommend this book. I usually recommend it in two incidents. The first one is if someone has had a marriage fall apart through divorce, I want them to read that and say, what could I have done differently in my last dating that could help me in my future to understand that and also to know what to do in the future. And then I also recommend it for anybody who is actively dating as a reference guide. So if you are interested in this after we hear this today and you feel like I would really like to know more, I'm going to recommend the book. And it looks just like this. You can order it on Amazon, okay? By the way, just so you know, a jerk is not gender specific. Girls can be jerks too, just so you know, and you might identify yourself as a jerk if you're starting to listen. I don't know. Anyway, so I'm going to go get started, okay? Alrighty. By the way, you do not need to write any of this down. You're welcome. I will give you my email address at the end of this, and you can just look through it to your heart's content. But I'm going to tell you, it's not a tenth of the book, because there's so much more stuff in here. I could probably teach a week of this and not even get through all of it even then. So let's get going, okay? Let's see, what is that one? Hold on, here we go. I just want to start with this little video. Studio C, we love them.
I called this emergency meeting because our company Life Alert is now officially on Life Alert. We need to launch a new ad campaign or we're finished. The average age of our consumer is 80 years old. So our company is literally dying.
Sorry we're late, Ms. Madsen, but we have just finished a new ad campaign which will lower Life Alert's demographic by 50 years.
I'm listening.
Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. By looking at Life Alert's potential in a new way, we're confident we can open up an entirely new market. Here's a preview of our ads.
As a single young professional, I had very little time for dating. I even tried the online thing. But it was just so hard to weed out all the crazies. I just wanted to meet a normal, nice, attractive, hardworking man.
Where are you in my life?
But he was nowhere to be found until I discovered Life Alert.
What's the emergency, ma'am?
A broken heart. Can you fix it?
With Life Alert, you know exactly what kind of man you're getting. And unlike meeting people online, these men are legally obligated to show up.
Where's the fire, ma'am?
You tell me.
No, seriously, where's the fire?
There's no fire, but there's definitely some sparks.
Whoa, buddy. I'm good, all right? I'm just napping.
Are you sure?
Not every emergency personnel is going to be right for you.
I've been doing this for 35 years.
Don't be afraid to push Life Alert until you get exactly what you want.
So what are you waiting for? Call now and let Life Alert make you Wife Alert.
Excuse me, where is the groom?
Oh, my bad. He's on his way.
Order yours now by calling 1-800-LIFE-ALERT. Life Alert is not for everyone. Teens and no susceptible to early love symptoms. Consult their heart before using improper use and
I love Studio C so much. Okay, so I just want to show you, I think sometimes we have to approach these conversations with a little bit of humor because, sometimes you just have to laugh at what's going on. I wanted to start with just some of the myths. Dr. Van App we have a lot of folklore around dating and about what we should be looking for and not looking for. And one of the first ones is all you need is love and everything else will work out, okay? Love conquers all, love at first sight, opposites are complementary, and love alone is a sufficient reason to marry, and you can work out all the rest later, okay? Those are some of the things that I think probably in some variation, all of us have heard all of our lives as we go along. Oh, it's going to be okay. You just need to get married. You'll work it all out or whatever. And we have to be really careful because those things can lead to really disastrous relationships if we're not careful. Love is like handing someone a gun, pointing at them and at your heart, and then trusting them never to pull the trigger. Somebody wrote that. Michael Gardner wrote that. But I just thought about that. I thought, it hurts when it doesn't work out. It hurts when we think we have something and then we don't, and it's really frustrating. And so there has to be a way to be able to look at this instead of just doing it all with what am my heart feeling, but also there is a thing that says love thinks. And I want you to think about that, love thinks. Now, if you think about the history of marriage, before the 1940s, most of the marriages were arranged. In some places in the world, they still are. They were basically, based on money or genetics or family compatibility. And I just always, when I read this, I thought to myself, I love Pride and Prejudice. And so this thought from Charlotte Lucas, it is best to know as little about your partner as possible before marriage. That is not true. That's not love thinking, okay? We need to know as much as possible about our partners before marriage. So I'll clarify again, jerks have no gender. Women, we can be jerks also, okay? But this is the definition of what we're looking at. A jerk is someone who is tough to be in a relationship with. And also someone who is persistent in their determination to never change. So if you're meeting somebody that it always is their way or the highway, you're looking at someone who doesn't want to change. And the real truth is every relationship I know that's good requires a great deal of compromise. President Kimball said that good marriages are made up of a lot of forgiveness and a lot of patience. And that is true. No matter when we marry, we may find some people we're naturally good with, but we may find some people that we really have to work through things that are hard for us. In my particular marriage, my husband loved water, absolutely loved water. He would drink it by gallons of it every day, but he liked it cold, and he liked it in the fridge in a pitcher, but he didn't like a cup. Anybody follow my drift here? So we called it the germ jug. And every once in a while, I tried at first just taking it out and he'd put it in, and I'd take it out and he'd put it in, and I'd take it out and put it in. And finally, I decided the only thing I'm going to really require here is that every once in a while I'm going to wash it because I'm afraid it's going to die of typhoid or something because it's not washed. And then he'd go, ew, you washed it, it tastes like soap. But, there's things that we can tolerate, and then there's things that we can't. Okay, so I will tell you, by the way, when he died, that's the first thing I did was throw away the germ jug. There is not one in my fridge, so we're all knowing. Okay, all right. Now, relationships are going to offer a climate for growth, always, okay, and also for change. So here's the, in the book, this is what Dr. Van Epp wrote about a jerk. He said, the key difference between acting like a jerk and being a jerk is where the person is really genuinely working towards changing that which harms another person. It is the genuine change that characterizes a person who has had a slip up from the persistent resistance to change, which identifies a jerk. Okay? So if you have somebody that you are in a relationship with and things are going a little rocky, but you're both still trying to work it out and you're both still trying to work for compromise, we don't have a jerk here. We have people that are just trying to figure out life together. I My mom and dad are a study in this that always make me laugh. My dad is a type A personality. He's the kind of guy that everything has to be in exactly the same place. It just makes him crazy if it's not. And the point of contention in my mom and dad's life is the refrigerator. And he liked to be able to open the fridge and know where the mayonnaise was always. And he would do things like he'd label the shelf and he'd label the jar and say, Mom, just put it back there. And Mom could not ever really be bothered by that. She'd open it up and stick it in. The latest version of this is that my dad now has the top shelf in their fridge is labeled Patricia, and she is just to put everything on the first shelf, and then he will put it where it goes. That's the newest thing. But what I love is that he's still trying to figure out a way to work this out. Now, when I say there's contention, there really isn't. He just goes and puts it where it goes. That's all the contention I'm talking about. But it has been a lifelong struggle for them to figure out the refrigerator. Lifelong. I don't know if it will ever cure itself. I really have no idea. Okay? So, as we look at that, saying they will change, but then reverting back to the past behavior is also a characteristic of a jerk. Okay, I'll change. They do it for 2 weeks, and then they just go back to wherever they were before. That would be another quality of someone who has a quality of being a jerk. Now, this is interesting. As you look at this cat, these two cats, I am not a cat person, but this seems typical of a cat relationship to me, okay? If I only knew then what I know now, I would have done things differently. So part of what I want to do for you today is to help you to understand some of the warning signs that might want to cross your mind. If you're seeing these consistently in anybody that you're in a relationship with, then you might want to take a step back and kind of reevaluate. So first of all, jerks often are consistent boundary breakers. So for instance, if you say, I'm going to go home and I'm going to go to bed, don't call me till tomorrow, but then they still call you at 10:30 at night. That would be a boundary breaker. Okay, if you set up a boundary that I need to be in bed by 10:30, but then they don't want you to go to bed and they guilt trip you to stay up until later, then that would be a boundary breaker. So jerks consistently bake brownies. No, they don't do that. They constantly break boundaries. I'll get it, I will. This is my 5th workshop today. You guys are lucky I'm not drooling on myself. Okay, the inability to see anything from anybody else's perspective, consistently disregarding your needs or your opinions, might be another one of those warning signs that if you're seeing that consistently, you want to take note. And lack of emotional control or balance, extreme like overreacting, explosive personalities, or extreme left. Those people are so flat that they have no reaction to anything. And that those two extremes often are characteristics of somebody we would label as a jerk, okay? So love is not all you need and love is not blind, okay? But let me explain to you what does happen when you are with people, and so you can understand why do I feel this way when I see all of these red flags, okay? So for instance, if the love switch is thrown on the brain switch is turned off, you leap into an exciting pool of pure emotion and willfully choose to stay until you're there, until you're about to drown in bad feelings. So let me give you the reason why. We are hardwired for certain things that have our body react. One of the things is that when we experience touch is so powerful that every time we are engaged in like holding somebody's hand or have their arm around us or we're cuddled up next to somebody, our body goes, wow, this feels so good, and it creates a chemical called oxytocin. Oxytocin is what's called a bonding drug. And the more that you are engaged in touch, the more oxytocin that is flowing. And then actually, when you are without that person for a while, you've ever heard of saying, like, my heart just hurts when I'm not with them? That is literally the same thing as a drug withdrawal. Okay? So I want you to understand, first of all, there's a chemical component to dating that we need to be very careful about and use it very judiciously. Do you know that the only power that God shares with us, that is God power, is creation? That's the only one. And that's why it has 1 billion rules and regulations around it, or warning signs for us, because it is so powerful. It is the thing that can absolutely get us into the most trouble, because it's a power that we really have to have a lot of control over. So that's one thing that we need to know, is that when we're jumping into that emotional pool, that sometimes what it is we've been together, so you know the numbers, sorry, oxytocin has about a 72-hour shelf life. And if it's like taking an aspirin and you get 4 hours of no headache. Like that. Except oxytocin is 72 hours. So if we see somebody and then we don't see them for about 72 hours, that drug is fading out of our system. One of the things that we can do that can help us to understand, am I in an oxytocin love is blind place, is to say, you know what, let's not see each other for the next 3 or 4 days. And don't call me and don't text me and don't call me. And I want to see how I feel about this after that. Because if it really is just oxytocin that you're swimming in, then that will fade and you'll feel perfectly content not to be with them. Now you'll have the withdrawal from it, but you'll be content to be without them. And then you go, wait a minute, there's not something more going on, because I will tell you that good relationships are not built on oxytocin alone. They're not. They have an element of it, but it's not what all there is, okay? So here's the masking. That's what oxytocin is going to do. It's going to mask any problems that you may see in a relationship, or let you make excuses for red flags that you may be seeing, okay? So here's one. The initial and overwhelming feelings of closeness and connection cloak the problems that eventually will turn you off. Because of the accelerated relationship, you become infected with the love is blind syndrome and run the high risk of making a commitment to someone you later realize is a jerk. Okay? So we have to be very, very careful about this oxytocin thing we're doing. On the fast track to getting involved with a jerk or jerkette, okay? One of the most common ways people are often set up to get involved with a jerk is by accelerating the pace of the relationship. So here's the biggest takeaway from this book, is that we need slow and steady relationships in order to vet them out and make certain that what we're dealing with is the real person in front of us, not just the love is blind oxytocin is taking me down on this wave. I just have a really, really sweet friend that I have just admired for a long time, and I'm scared to death for him right now because he was talking to someone online. She came into the country. She was going to go home, and they had only just met. They'd been talking for 3 months online, but they had just met. And before she went home, she convinced him to get married. And I went, I hope, and I'm just hoping with all my heart that it's okay. I don't know. I have no idea. But I'm worried about him right now because in that push for a quick relationship, we often have the situation that we are marrying people that would be put into that jerk category, okay? So here is the magic numbers. Anybody can be anything for 3 months. We can fake it for 3 months. We can be the most wonderful, loving, whatever, or the people we're dating can put on this mask. But after 3 months, it's exhausting to keep trying to be something that you're not, or carry on with a facade that you have tried to set up. So I will say to you that the first 3 months, this is Dr. Van Epp, not me, just, you know, the first 3 months we need to take it slow and steady and date, but not make any big commitments and any big whatever. And also there should be a time in there where we're gonna test the oxytocin and not see each other for maybe a week or so and see how it feels. I have a young woman I'm working with right now, and she said, I'm kind of confused right now. She's like 17 years old. And she said, you know, I thought I was so in love with this boy, and she's just been talking about him and just talking him up. She said, but then he went out of town for 3 weeks, and by the time he came back, I didn't even know if I really wanted to date him anymore. And I said, hello, Mr. Oxytocin, there you are. And she said, what? And I said, yep, that's just what you went through. And I said, he's probably wonderful, but you don't know enough about him yet to really decide if you're in a relationship. You have oxytocin running the ship right now, not you. And so I would just say 3 days, 3 months or 90-day probation. So that gives you a chance to see if they are who they are or not. So at 3 months, they get very, very real, okay? Now, the other thing, so relationship development is all about the pace of the development. 3 months, really slow and going, okay? Now, this is, it used to be love is not what the mind thinks, but what the heart feels. Dr. Van Epp says it's really about love thinking and making logical choices here. And it's not that we don't feel, now I don't want to make this so clinical, that we don't ever feel the butterflies, that we don't ever feel the closeness and the wonderfulness of being in love. Love is a very real thing, but love is based on more than oxytocin. And that's what I want to make certain. That pace of getting to know them, slowing the roll, is the most important thing that you can do in your dating relationship. So, love does not alter the essence of the person who is loving you. Just because they love you, it does not fix their problems. And love can motivate us to change, but love alone will not fix us. This is Dr. Van Epp's list of what he says in his book. Now, as he did this whole research, he came up with he wanted to have some kind of a visual so we could know how to look at the dating, right? So he came up with this thing called the RAM, the Relationship Attachment Model. And basically, it portrays the 5 sources of love and closeness in a really good relationship. And he said in all of his studies, this is what he discovered by longitudinally following the students that he had them do the questionnaire right when they got engaged about their dating, and then he had a follow-up study every year. He'd mail them out a thing and say, how's the marriage going? So this is what he discovered. There are 5 elements in a relationship attachment model, and they all, think of it like the old-time toggle like you had on speakers. Like if you had the bass and the treble, the more you went up, the treble would be higher. If you went down, it'd be lower. He said, so think of it that way. The first toggle on the board is that of knowing the person. And he said, and what happens ideally is that when you meet somebody, you don't know anything about it, so your toggle is way, way, way down. And then you start dating. Now remember, in my last class, I talked a little bit about that dating is for the purpose of getting to know someone. So as you know something, that toggle is either going to go up or it's going to go down, depending on what you're knowing about somebody. So if what you know helps you to feel more like they're trustworthy, they're wonderful, well, the next toggle that may start to rise is as I know them more, I start to trust them. And I'm willing to maybe share some details about my life or maybe share some of my intimate thoughts about my world or anything like that. But as the knowing is increasing, the knowledge is increasing, the trust should be rising also. Unless something happens to hit that toggle switch and then push it down. So what you may know, your knowledge may increase, but all of a sudden you realize something about them that's like, oh, wait a minute, that's messing with my trusting them. I'll give you an example of this. I was out with a gentleman, and we went to a restaurant someplace that was like you did your own drinks. It's one of those ones that give you the cup and you do your own. And I had ordered a water, and he gave me a water cup, and I went over and got my water. And he ordered a water also. But what I noticed is I went up to the fountain that he was filling his cup with a soda. Now that's a really little thing, isn't it? It's just a tiny little thing, but it gave me a part where all of a sudden my trust toggle took down a notch. Because first of all, my soul is not worth 87 cents of soda. I would never do that. But for him, it was no big deal. And you may, as you get to know people, that trust toggle can go up or go down depending on what you are seeing. And depending on your value of trust, it's going to go up or down as the knowledge is increasing. Now, the knowledge is increasing by the time that you're spending with them, by the time you're talking to them, with the time that you are sharing experiences together, maybe as you're problem solving together, maybe as you're working on a project together. That knowledge toggle is constantly rising every time that you have an interaction with them. But your trust toggle may be going up or down right now. And every time it goes down, it's a time where we stop and say, wait a minute, if I value trust, then I'm going to watch for more trustworthy or non-trustworthy things. But if all is going really well, and our trust toggle is rising, and our knowledge toggle is rising, and our trust toggle is rising, the next one would be reliability. Reliability is where you start to share your life with them and see if they're going to take care of that. So for instance, if they say, I'll be there to help you do your lawn on Saturday, or I'll be there on Saturday to help you, get ready for a party or something, and they don't show up. Well, it's like, maybe I can't, I thought I could rely on them, but maybe I can't. And that reliability toggle may take a hit, okay? And as the knowledge is rising and the trust is rising, the reliability may not be moving. It may be stuck, or it may be rising perfectly fine in harmony as we're going up. If all that's going really well, then our next toggle is the commitment toggle. Are they committed to this relationship? Am I the only person they want to have this relationship with? And as you're looking at that, you may find that that's going just fine, or you may find, wait, he's still talking to his last girlfriend, or wait, she is still wanting to go out and have lunch with this guy that she has at work, or whatever. And so that commitment, are they really committed to me, is an important part. Because everything can be going well, and then one of these toggles can take a hit. And all of a sudden, the one rule is, though, the first toggle has to be higher than the next one. So you may hit a trust toggle that knocks it way down, and you don't see anything to pull it back up. And then we have a problem there. The very last toggle that Dr. Van Epp put on this relationship was the physical touch. And I will tell you that about 1/3 of this book is about the knowledge toggle, and 1/3 of it is about the physical toggle. And what he basically says is that the sooner that you start that physical toggle rising, the more likely it is that you are to overlook when there's a hit to the trust toggle, or the reliable toggle, or the commitment toggle. And so you have to be really careful to keep that toggle way dialed down, and very minimal community. Now, there are certain kinds of touch that have an awful lot of oxytocin release, and there are some toggles that, some experiences that don't. So for instance, having someone put their hand on your back, not a lot of physical, that oxytocin release, not a lot there, but cuddling with someone for an hour and a half on a couch under a blanket watching a movie is going to be a lot of oxytocin kind of kicking out there. So that's the reason we have to hold that toggle way, way down until the relationship is a lot more established. Now, of course, that toggle is going to raise in any relationship that's going to go on past this, but we have to watch it really carefully and keep that pull down. So here's one of the things that Dr. Van Epp says, is that if we have somebody who wants to violate or to race that physical toggle up quickly, then we probably are looking at somebody who might be a jerk, because they know that if they raise this up, then all the rest of this is going to get, all the red flags here are going to get ignored, okay? I will give you a personal experience with this. I had decided long ago that when I started dating someone, that I would make certain that that physical toggle stayed way down, because I just knew that before I got married, I had never been real physical with anybody, and as soon as I got married, I realized why, because it was like a house of fire. But as soon as I thought, if I ever started dating, I know that now I'm like holding a tiger by the tail, and I have to be really, really careful with this. So what I did is I made it very clear to anybody that I was going to date that I don't kiss on the first date. That's not something I do, and I don't know when I'm going to kiss. Well, I was dating a man, and it wasn't going all that well, but after the first date, he swooped in for a kiss, and I took a step back, and I said, I don't kiss on the first date. And he gave me this look like, what? And he tried to kiss me again, and I took a step back, and I said, I don't kiss on the first date. And he got really a little upset at me, and he kind of stormed off. And we went out a second time, and I said, I feel like I need to explain to you what just happened. I am protecting this relationship by not stepping into that too fast. And he said, well, how long are you not going to kiss anybody? And I said, I don't know. And he said, oh, okay. He never asked me out again, and he told me later, he said, I guess you probably want to know why we didn't do that. I decided that you're not ready to date because you're not ready to do that. And I went, nice to know. And I was done. Because he could not respect the boundary, the physical boundary that I had set. But I knew the danger of going past that. I knew myself. I wasn't protecting him from me. I was protecting me from him, was how I was phrasing it. So one of the things Dr. Van Epp says is we have to be really, really careful with that physical toggle. But I wanted to take you for a few minutes that I've got left into the knowledge toggle, because that's where the actual dating part is, and that's what you need to say, what do I need to know about this person? While I'm dating, what should I be looking for and what should I know? So for instance, let's see, I did this, okay. All righty, here we go. Level 1, they call it, they have an acronym for it called FACES. He said there are 5 things that you really need to try to discover about the person that you're dating. First of all, we need some information about their family background. For instance, and you'll get that by seeing them with their family. Are they kind to one another? Are they supportive of one another? What kind of relationship do they have with one another? Is there a lot of contention in the family? That family background is going to give you a lot of information about what their normal was growing up or currently is. And no matter how hard we try, have you ever heard yourself saying, I'm never going to do that as a parent, and then all of a sudden your mother's words come out of your mouth? Yeah, because we are products of the homes that we were raised in. There are things about us that are directly linked back to our family of origin. And so looking at his or her family of origin, we get to see a lot about what's deep in the woods in their psyche and what's growing up with them, okay? Another one is the attitudes and acts of conscience. So that would be where the honesty part. How do they live lives of integrity or do they not? That would be another one. Compatible potential. This is where are you guys on the same road, walking the same direction? Do you have the same kind of goals? Do you have the same kind of value system there in that potential? Examples of other relationships. In the book, Dr. Van Epp said, don't ever marry anybody until you've gone out with them, with their friends at least once. Because when they're with their friends, they are who they actually are. And I thought that was really interesting. So others examples of how do they interact with the world in general, with other people. And then the last one, skills of relationships. Are they good at knowing how to deal with conflict? Are they good at knowing how to express their needs and their wants, or what's going on there with them? What relationship skills do they have? Now, Dr. Van Epp in the book goes into lots and lots more details about, so you would know what this was, more of this. But as you look at this, that toggle, all of those things are going to help that knowledge toggle continually rise up. And hopefully, if things are good in the relationship, it's going to help the trust toggle to move. It's going to help the reliable toggle to move, and the commitment toggle to move up also. Okay. So this in the family one, I just wanted to this was funny. He said you can't marry Jethro without getting the Clampetts. I thought that was fun. Meaning, as you are with their family, you're going to see a lot about what our family dynamics look like. Childhood experiences are some of the strongest predictors of what your partner will be like as a spouse and a parent. We have, in social work, we have a thing called the ACEs. It's the Adverse Child Experiences scale. And when we have people fill that out, we often see why they're living their lives the way they were is based directly upon what happened to them when they were children. And so that's one of the things that you want to get to know a little bit more about it. Some things like, what was the atmosphere of the home? How was affection shown? What made you feel special in the family? Who were you close to in your family? How do you know that you were loved by your mother or father? How were conflicts handled? And how did your parents handle their anger? I remember working with a woman once, and I asked her the question. I said, how were conflicts handled in your family? She said, oh, we never had conflicts. And I went, oh, that's so interesting. So you never disagreed? Oh, we had disagreed, but we never had conflicts. And I said, what does that mean? And she said, well, when we had conflicts, we just went to our room and we didn't talk about it. And I thought, oh, she's a master stuffer of emotions. That's what we just learned about her. And so a lot of the things that are growing up in your home are going to be, and if you really look at this and see, why do I do the things that I do? A lot of it dates back to your childhood experiences, and it will for whoever it is you're talking to. We are the sum of all of the experiences we've ever had. That's what we are, okay? Patterns of consciousness. This area provides the critical information for discovering future and hidden relationship scripts, okay? So for instance, right and wrong parameters. Can they admit they're wrong, and are they accountable for their actions? Or transporting consciousness. This is seeing and responding to others' needs above their own. Are they able to transport into your perspective, prompting understanding and empathy? Okay, this is a really, really big one. Are you guys in the same area of what's right and wrong, what we should do, what we shouldn't do? I hate to use the word should because that's so subjective, but this is an important one. If you were going to, how do you resolve the conflicts when there are conflicts? What do they do with them is a really important one, okay? Compatibility and chemistry and similarities. The most successful relationships, the two partners have a blend of similarities and differences and in personalities, backgrounds, and styles. So Relationship first and chemistry second. Chemistry, are you attracted to each other? Have you have a sense of connection and being in sync, and do you have feelings of passion and fascination? Almost all good relationships have an element of the chemistry that's going on there. Okay, whoops, sorry. And the similarities, do you have more similarities than differences in personalities, lifestyles, and values? Money is a big one. I can't, for a long time, the one thing that I did as a counselor more often than not in my office was work through financial differences between couples. Are you a spender and they're a saver? What do you value spending money on, and what do you think is absolutely not necessary to spend money on? You cannot believe how much is wrapped up in that. And that's one of the things that you should be talking about in this getting to know you part. Oh, do you feel like family vacations are important, or is that something that's nice to have or not have to have or never have, however that works? If they're important to you and they're not important to them, that could be a real problem down the road, okay? And to what extent do your differences come together in complementary ways, okay? So I'll give you a complementary way. My husband was the idea guy. He would think up wonderful things to do, but his execution of that sorely lacked. I remember a time when I had 5 children and we were traveling and we're going to go see something, but he had not planned we were going to stop and had not made an appointment, and we were in New Mexico. We didn't have a reservation anywhere, and it is 11 o'clock at night and we're traveling from hotel to hotel to hotel to hotel to only find out they were all booked because it was a balloon festival in Albuquerque. And I have crying children in the car and all that. So where I was complimentary is my superpower, absolutely, is organization. And so he'd think up the idea, and where he was, I'm not a good idea person. That is just not me. About as creative I get is figuring out a different frosting on a cookie. So he would think up the idea, and then I would execute and make all the appointments and do all the reservations and find out what time the park's opened or whatever it is we're doing. And together, we were a wonderful, fun, family, wholesome activity people. But individually, I'm too strict, and I don't have any ideas anyway, and he's got so many ideas, but they never execute because we show up and the park is closed for a week for maintenance. That kind of thing, okay? So sometimes the similarities work together in harmony to do something wonderful, but sometimes they don't. And so that's one of the things that you want to try to figure out. Where are my strengths and where are yours, and how do they blend? And where am I willing to compromise and where am I not? What things are important to me, what are deal breakers and what aren't, kind of a thing is an important part to get in the knowing. The patterns of how they relate to others, how do they take care of themselves? How do they take care of you? And then how do they take care of meaningful others, like possibly their extended family? And then how do they treat people in general, is when they have nothing to gain from them. And so those are important ones to say, how do those relationships work as we're getting to know each other, okay? Pay attention to your partner's friends because they often mirror the qualities that exist in your partner. That was that one, okay? Skills of relationship, how are their communication skills, okay? When something goes wrong, do they go silent? Do they get angry and scream? Do they figure out how to work with it? What do they do here, okay? What skills do they possess in communicating and resolving differences? Do they live what they preach, have open-ended disclosure and empathetic listening styles? Are they seeing similar amounts of listening, talking, disclosing, and initiating between you and the person you're dating? And by the way, those kind of conversations, that number 2, those don't happen in the first month or 2 of your dating, right? Those are things that when you get more comfortable and you're willing to be a little more vulnerable, you're ready to have conversations like this. That's why in the first 3 months, you're not going to really know this about somebody. And then good conflict resolution skills. How do they resolve conflict? Do they go quiet? Do they get angry? Do they storm off and disconnect? Do they gaslight? What do they do here, okay? Now, that's the level of trust. I want to make certain that we know this. We have a tendency in that trust toggle to do what I call transference. Transference is where I have given them a label in my mind, and then I give them all those qualities that go with it. So for instance, if I say return missionary, you guys all have a script in your head about what that person's like, right? And it's all good. Well, for most of it, it's good. Maybe faithful, maybe a temple recommend holder, maybe someone who's going to be obedient. You give them all these qualities without even knowing them. So part of the problem in the trust toggle is we give them a ton of trust where trust has not really been earned yet. And so we have to be careful about that transference. For instance, I'll give you a good one. My son-in-law, my oldest daughter, married my son, and it was so interesting. He looked so much like my husband, it was uncanny. And often when we took that first couple of years of family pictures, there would be, John would be in with all of us, and then we'd say, our son-in-law's in there. They'd often point to my first son, my oldest son, and say, oh, is he the one married to Aubrey? I'd say, no, it's John. And they go, that is so weird. He looks just like Bob. And I said, yep, he does. And what happened for Aubrey was whenever my husband served a mission in Texas, and one of the things they told him to bring was 20 handkerchiefs. Anybody want to guess why? Sweat, yep. So my husband, every single day of his life, put a white handkerchief in his pocket because he just did. After his mission, he just always carried one. Now, most of the time, that handkerchief got handed to me whenever I got emotional. He'd hand me that handkerchief, and I'd dab my eyes and maybe blow my nose, and then I'd put it back in his pocket where I'd retrieve it and clean it for the next week, and he'd have a good new one. Well, my daughter Aubrey goes off with John to a fireside, and there's some musical number that really touches her, and she starts to weep. And guess what happens? John reaches into his pocket, pulls out a white handkerchief, and hands it to her. And all of a sudden, she said, my heart went pit-a-pat. I thought, I am dating my dad. And all the good things about her dad, John had. Now, the good news is John did have those. That was good. Whew, that was great. They didn't get engaged really quick. But she said at that moment, she transferred all of Bob's goodness to John. And she said it was just a real moment. So we do this without thinking about it. We do this sometimes wonderfully. Sometimes we do it negatively. For instance, if you grew up in a home where people yelled and it was scary, and somebody that you're with yells, you automatically go back into that scary place because they lost their temper. So that transference can be good or bad, but we have to be aware that we're doing it all the time, okay? Alrighty. The reliability, will they meet my needs? That's the reliability one. And the commitment, is your bond your word? You remember in Princess Bride where she would test him and say, farm boy, hand me that picture. And he'd reach up and he'd hand it to her and say, as you wish. He was taking care of her, saying, whatever you need, I'm here for you. That kind of a commitment, and whatever you say you'll do. He said, why didn't you wait for me? She said, well, you were dead. He said, I told you I would come. And she said, but you were dead. And he said, well, true love can never stop. The death cannot stop true love. I mean, it's probably the quintessential that will they meet my needs and take care of me in those places. I just watched my father. My mom has had rheumatoid arthritis for many, 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 many years, and she's been in so much pain, and so much so that she really has been bedridden for probably about the last 5 years of her life. And I watched my dad tenderly take care of my mother in every way. He would ask her, what can I get you? And he would do things that just come in and fluff her pillows. Or at one point, he thought it was too warm in her room for her, so he put in an air conditioner. It didn't matter what my mom wanted or needed. My dad was there to anticipate and to take care of her. And if we're really honest and true, we want someone who'll take care of us in this relationship, not only physically, but emotionally and spiritually. And this is one of the things about that commitment. Are they there for you? Is an important part of that. Or is there somebody else between you and them? Is sometimes something important that you need to find out. So that's part of that toggle situation. This is from the book. Commitment is a persevering, unwavering devotion that even death itself cannot sway, a loyal determination to fulfill what one has promised that sustains a union through the years. And I think that's just beautiful to think about that. And then the last one, I've talked about the touch. Here is kind of the levels of, as you go up this scale, we are looking for, those are going to be more intensive releases of oxytocin. So I will just warn you in the relationship that if you're dating someone, keep those at bay for quite a while and move up that scale very, very slowly. So it doesn't fog all the rest of it. In a good relationship, it has a depth of knowledge about each other's trust, reliability, commitment, and a satisfying physical relationship. That's what Dr. Van Epp found, is that all of those things are needed for a really great relationship. And as we do this, I want to just remind you, I wanted to take you into Doctrine and Covenants 9. It says this. If you'll remember, Oliver had asked before this to translate the Book of Mormon. And he had seen Joseph do it 100 times, and he said, I can do this, just give me a shot. And so he did exactly what Joseph had done in every single way, and it did not work. And then Oliver comes back to Joseph, and Joseph gets this revelation from the Lord. He said, behold, you have not understood. You suppose that I would give it unto you when you took no thought, save it was to ask. But behold, I say unto you that you must study it out in your mind, and you must ask me if it's right. And if it is right, I will cause that your bosom shall burn within you, and wherefore you shall feel that it is right. Brothers and sisters, can I tell you that that's exactly what needs to happen in this relationship that you're looking at, is that you need to study it out in your mind. You can't just kneel down and say, Heavenly Father, is this the right one? If you haven't already done the work to find out, that you have studied it out, you have looked at the knowledge, you've looked at the trust, you've looked at the reliability, you've looked at the commitment, and you have kept the physical in touch, and you're ready now to ask that question after you have done the work. And that's how we find good relationships. There's a lot of scary out there, I'll tell you that. Brother McConkie said this. Now, seemingly, that's all he'd been instructed to do. He's talking about Oliver, to ask in faith. But implicit in asking in faith is the precedent required that we do everything in our power to accomplish the goal that we seek. We use the agency with which we have been endowed. We use every faculty and capacity and ability that we possess to bring about the eventuality that may be involved. It is translating the Book of Mormon. It's choosing a wife. It's choosing employment. It's doing any one of 10,000 important things that arise in our lives. The pattern is the same. So, brothers and sisters, as you think about why would I go through, Jody, that's a lot, and I don't blame you. What I just gave you is a lot. But you ask me, how do I find a really good relationship? It will require a certain element of asking and searching and studying and pondering in order to be able to have the information that then you can now go to the Lord and say, this is what I see. I've done the work. Can I just get your guiding hand about a yes or a no at this point? Probably, though, the real truth is you'll already know if you've done the work. He goes on to say this. He said, use both agency and power. It is not, never has been, and never will be the design and the purpose of the Lord, however much we seek in him in prayer, to answer all of our problems and concerns without struggle and effort on our part. This mortality is a probationary estate. We are being tested to see how we'll respond in various situations. How we will decide issues, what course we'll pursue while we are here walking, not by sight, but by faith. Hence, we are to solve our own problems and then counsel with the Lord in prayer and receive a spiritual confirmation that our decisions are correct. So I guess what I'm giving you is homework. I'm giving you homework to say if you want a really great relationship, it's going to require time. But most importantly, the one thing I want you to remember is the pace of it. Slow it down, give it time, let it breathe, and then watch it unfold and see what you see, okay? Love thinks, okay? If you are interested in this prayer PowerPoint, just go ahead and send me an email and just say send me the Jerk email, Jerk PowerPoints, and I'll send them to you in a Dropbox for you to be able to open whatever you'd like. Brothers and sisters, can I bear you my testimony about this? My last class was a little bit more about this, but if you want a wonderful relationship, you have every right in the world to go ask the Lord, how do you achieve it? And he has, and through the Holy Ghost, he can guide and direct you to see what you need to see, understand what you need to understand, and be in the right place to have those experiences so that the Lord can fulfill that want. I believe that that is a righteous desire of our hearts, to be paired up and to have somebody wonderful in our life to love and support us and help get us back to our Heavenly Father. And I say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Okay, we are done. Are you guys all tired? Is dinner, anybody know what's next? Is dinner next? Dinner is next. Should we have a closing prayer and a blessing on the food then? Should we do that? Does anybody want to do that for us? You don't have to come up here. You can stand wherever you are. Anybody want to volunteer? Or I can foretold you. I can voluntold you. Thank you so much. Amen. Thank you so much. All right. Hi, sweetheart. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good.
Thank you for all
Oh,
this.
you're welcome.
Do you ever teach this, like for groups?
I would love to do that. I'm happy to do that. So let me do this. Let me give you, where's my cards? Very good. Let me just give you a business card.
You have somebody that's been teaching for the International Single Adults.
Oh, yeah.
And he spends a lot of time saying, when you touch for 90 days, and you've got single adults that like, no, don't touch them, don't hand dance with them. And I approach them, and I'm sorry, I'm so concerned. It's like this new culture that's coming up with it's a shit culture. And I stand here and I'm breaking all the rules.
Well, it's not my rules. They're Brother Van Epps' rules. They're not mine.
Well, I know I shouldn't say all the rules because we're getting our pretty cool.
Well, you know what? I am not going to tell anybody don't do it. I just will say we need to. Now you know. Maybe y'all can have a real deep conversation about stuff.
I actually took this in relationships class.
Oh, good.
And my degree is in psychology.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
But
So, yeah,
I,
if you need
I
any
told
help or
my teacher,
if
I
you.
said, I don't like this culture. I said, we dance, I mean, we have a mixer, which is speed dancing. So we've already had them touching. Now they go to the service class and he tells them don't touch for 90 days at all.
90 days, yeah. And it's just, yes, it's real careful.
Is very clear in saying sexual touch, which is different than.
Then, yes, holding someone's hand, that's way different than cuddling under a blanket, watching a movie. It's very different than holding someone's hand dancing.
But I'm having these people come to me to please understand that help me.
Well, if he's already teaching the class, you can't teach him that kind of thing.
But we're teaching it every month.
The same class? The same, kind of like this?
Not very good. He teaches it in 2 weeks. Does 4 hours each night. So 8 hours. So 8 hours. And this so I think it's amazing. Married co-chair, so the past co-chair. Now I'm the new co-chair. Okay. Coming in there. I read this book, and they call it jerk or jerkette. And I'm like, oh, yeah. And he said the first one. We're reading it together.
Good.
And the first thing it says is, jerk doesn't have a gender.
No gender. That's right. That's why my first slide is there's no gender. All the guys just left because they think we're picking on them. If there's no gender here, girls can be jerks. Oh yeah. We have narcissistic jerks a lot. So forget. So you need me, just let me know. I'm happy to come down. I don't think I do it every single month because that's a lot.
No, and I don't.
But
you
if
have
you
to.
need me
They're
for a
pushing it
conference-
every month. They're pushing it every month.
Okay.
I'm not pushing that, and
Okay.
I'm saying we need to back off just a little
Well-
bit of something that's becoming the single culture of. Has it been 90 days? Has it been 90 days? What are you doing? It hasn't been 90 days.
Like the Pharisees,
And
huh?
people are putting on their Facebook pages.
24 days.
I don't touch for 90 days.
Yeah, well.
Don't ask me out unless you don't want to touch for 90 days.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
because we know in relationships, one of the things that is clearly brings a couple together is touch.
Well, yes.
And-
Oxytocin
and,
is incredibly
you know,
powerful.
well,
yes.
And I mean, children wither if you don't touch them. So
true.
will a relationship if you don't have any.
Yes, and you just have to just slow the
But you
roll,
have
the
to-
pace
yes, you have
of
to
this.
slow the
It's like,
pace, you
you know, I still remember when I was a young girl that like when somebody held my hand, I thought I was going to pass out. It was like so much, you know.
Yeah.
And so there is, the problem is that when you jump from 0 to 90, that's a problem. But, you know, holding someone, giving them a hug, those kind of things are not a big deal. But when it starts to move, and you know what, you know what's happening in your body. You should know, hey, I'm in a danger zone right now, and have some personal say I am absolutely, but you have to have somebody you trust that will say,